I'm super honored today to have three very experienced game CEOs and also co-founders of Finnish game companies to share how they lead their groups to make really successful games. And we have three different platforms, or even more so, represented today. So console development, PC games, and mobile games as well. So today there is Tero Virtala from Remedy Entertainment, Mariina Hallikainen from Colossal Order, and Jami Laes from Futureplay Games. And without further ado, welcome to the stage the first speaker, Tero Virtala.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. So my name is Tero Virtala, and as Anna-Kaisa said, I'm the CEO of Remedy. On today's topic, it is about leadership, but when we discussed the specific topic among leadership was to discuss how to lead creative teams. I have a few slides to give some background for the panel discussion that we are having after these short presentations. But before that, just shortly, for those of you who don't know Remedy, we are a game studio, game company here in Finland, have existed already for 25 years. It's a long time in our industry, which is changing all the time. We focus purely on console and PC gaming, creating, as we say, AAA experiences. Our special trademark has also been the capability to create immersive worlds, interesting gaming characters, stories around those characters in those worlds, and combine into those really high quality action gameplay. We are currently 260 people, very international crew, 26, I think nowadays 27 different nationalities, all based here in Espoo. Myself, I actually graduated here, I think over 20 years ago. I'm a Master of Science here from the Faculty of Technical Physics. I became a management consultant in PricewaterhouseCoopers in strategy and business development, worked there for about 4 years. And actually in 2002, the internet bubble had just burst. In a way, there were a lot of technology-focused people here in Finland who started to look for something new, an industry that could be growing. Some of my old friends founded a small gaming company. I joined them in 2002 to become the CEO of a gaming studio called Redlynx. Many of my leadership experiences grew in that time when in the first phases of Redlynx we were 4 people. In a way, had big ambitions, what would be happening in the mobile gaming industry, interactive TV games, web gaming. And in a way, then, while in paper, many of those things looked so promising and so obvious that would happen, and eventually they never did, and it was constant ups and downs, until we then found our growth path with digitally distributed console and PC games, started growing, and then Ubisoft, one of the big global gaming publishers, bought our studio. I stayed as a managing director there still for almost 4 years, participated in many of the international business development projects that Ubisoft was having. Then stepped down in 2015, started considering what should I do, what would I like to do as a next step. Didn't have any hurry, worked with some Finnish gaming companies, and then in 2016 became the CEO of Remedy Entertainment. Had the pleasure of working them as a consultant, started knowing them, they started knowing me, and now have been a CEO of Remedy for the past 3.5 years. Then, in a way, today's topic, with Anna-Kaisa we were discussing about having some perspectives what is leadership from our perspective when we are leading game development teams, and especially when typically people consider game industry as a creative industry, that what it means to lead creative people and creative teams. So one of the experiences that I've had is that, first of all, when we discuss about creativity, is that most people typically immediately think that creativity is the artistic creativity or the creativity that designers have. Whereas in my learnings, you always, when you are doing something, you have an objective, something should be accomplished, or you face a problem and we should find kind of like something to solve that problem. And to me, always, what I have seen in gaming industry especially is that creativity is most of all the capability to find alternative ways that work. And when I define creativity in that way, sometimes we face a problem, sometimes we face a situation, and the old way, it works. It's best to use that. It's a proven way, no problem. But in many ways, when we deal with new technologies, new ideas, the old ways don't work. And then you need to find alternative ways. And I have seen, in a way, this type of alternative wayfinding from a number of different people, from lawyers in contract negotiations, from salespeople in selling something. Programmers have amazing creativity every single day in solving different problems. And then, of course, we have talented artists who are creative in what they produce. But defined in that way, I've seen that creativity exists in all the different disciplines. And the one common denominator that all these people have, creative people, no matter if they are artists or something else, is that typically these people, their creativity comes most of all from the fact that their toolbox is huge. And what I mean with toolbox is that, yes, these people often in their own discipline, they are talented. But at the same time, when I, for example, look at a very creative, amazing artist, that person has most likely been drawing from his childhood or her childhood, has been in a way participating in different classes after school, has been continually developing the skills that she or he has been reading different books, becoming familiar with different artists, trying to replicate what they are doing. And nowadays at work, when they then finally, in a way, come up with a creative solution, it might be intuitively that it feels creative, and it is. But in reality, they are most likely using some of those lifelong learnings that they have had. And in that sense, what I see as creative people is that they are talented, but they have been really devoted on what they have been doing. They have been building their toolbox throughout their whole life, and they are very ambitious on what they do, so they try to also apply that. And in that sense, I see creativity in all the different disciplines. And then when I look at leadership, kind of like as a different topic, is that there are in a way two perspectives that I see. That typically, yes, something needs to be accomplished. We need to create a successful game. We need to create some technology. We need to develop business in a certain way. So there is a topic. But in the end, leadership is always about leading people. You may lead big teams of people. You may lead smaller teams. As a supervisor, you sometimes may lead one person, but in a way, the best practice for becoming a leader is that in the end, it's most important that you lead yourself. And most of us know it, kind of like how hard it is sometimes. In a way, you have so many things you should be doing, kind of like how do you prioritize your own task? How are you able to lead yourself to make those happen? And that's typically one of the really important perspectives in leadership that many people forget. That's one part, but then in a way, when we have, whether you are doing something by yourself, with a small team, with a bigger team, then of course it's a question that something needs to be accomplished. It might be the game project, it might be the technology, it might be a party that has to be organized. There is a group of people that's trying to accomplish something. And in order to do that successfully, typically what I've seen, as a basic principles, no matter what the topic, you should understand the current status. Where are we at the moment? With the team, we should form some sort of an idea, where do we want to go, what's the objective, and then we should have some alignment on the plan, how do we intend to go there. It might be a very flexible plan, but something on which we are aligned, and then start doing it efficiently. And how do you, in a way, lead the team to get that understanding of where we are, where we aim to go, what's the plan, and how do we implement that efficiently? That's then the other perspective of leadership. And now when I combine these, that what it means to lead creative people with these definitions that I have seen from my perspective, is that, for example, at games, at Remedy we have defined, we have approximately 15 different disciplines. And all of these people, they know from their own field so much more that I could never understand most of those things. But at the same time, when they then form a team, and our teams are typically, small teams are 20 people, in a way medium-sized people are 50 to 60 people, bigger teams are 100, 150 people. So when these talented people form their teams, they are really complex projects. Even though no matter how qualified these people are, there is no one person that can understand all those different parts. And sometimes people say that creativity is at best that just kind of like provide the full freedom for the team. What I have seen in big teams is that if with these complex projects you provide full freedom, the most likely end result is chaos. And it's also frustration when creative people are typically really ambitious. They want to kind of like get things done. And then if you have a chaotic project organization, things don't get done, people get frustrated. It's something completely else than creativity. And we have a saying that creativity is at its best when it has borders. And it basically means that as leaders, we need to support that team to be able by themselves to form a view of where we are. The team needs to form a view, what's their goal, and then they need to form the plan how to get there. And as leaders, it's our job to support them to be able to do that. And when they have done it, we hold them accountable that this is now your plan, you have planned how to make it, you are accountable for making it happen, but then as leaders, we provide all the support that they need to be successful. And in a way, that's been a big learning for me as a leader, because 20 years ago, it used to be that the leader was the one who was analyzing the situation and who was providing the goal, and leader in a way with some other people was forming the plan and then handing the plan that make it happen. And that's not the case. But I saw 10 years ago as well that there was a habit that, let's say to the team, that make the plan and make it happen, and it didn't happen like that. But nowadays, at least with the bigger teams, the best way is for leadership that they try to support the teams to analyze, to form the objectives, the plans, and then they do everything they can to help the teams to do it. But that's the background. We can discuss more than in the panel.
Hi everyone. Will Anna-Kaisa handle the tech side for me? Awesome. My name is Mariina Hallikainen. I'm the CEO at Colossal Order. And when Anna-Kaisa and I had a little bit of a small chat about this event, she asked for a very personal point of view. So you're gonna get that from me today. So Colossal Order was founded 10 years ago, or actually now 11 years ago in Tampere. And we've been working on simulation games for PC ever since, and basically doing the same thing over and over again with first Cities in Motion series and then City Skylines. And I was only 23-year-old when I actually was founding the company and became its CEO. So I had very little experience of working, first of all, in the game industry. I had no experience of that. And also just basically working as a leader. So I have had to wing it since the beginning. I was actually studying automation technology at TUT when we started to set up the company. So I think one of the biggest learnings for me is that it is possible to take on a task that feels massive and then together with the team figure things out. So a lot of bravery goes into the, first of all, working in the game industry as well as being a leader. So I think my talk is going to be extremely short. I mean, it's really simple to lead a game company. It's as simple as leading any company. If you have certain mindset and a couple of facts in mind when you're doing it. So first of all, what is the task? The task is to enable the team that you have to do what they do best. You're not at the center there as a leader. You're, like Tero said, you're supporting the creativity, you're supporting the team. So to understand that is the key to being a successful leader. And there are 3 simple steps. I'm making this sound extremely simple, so I'm encouraging you guys to enter the industry and do something of your own as well. So gather the best people and the right people, the people that work well together, the people you can trust and feel that they are at their best working with you on the project that you are working on. So it's really about the teams behind the games. And that's how you basically get the best ideas and the best games. You need to trust the team. And this is something that I really have had to learn because I was very young when I started and I was very scared when I started at Colossal Order, when we found the company. And for me, it was very important to keep control over everything. And that was basically because of I was in constant panic. What will happen? How will we survive? What needs to be done? How we're going to do things? And there were so many questions that it was impossible to take on such a big task before I realized that I actually have a team of professionals working with me, and we are supposed to do this together. To be able to let go of the kind of control when you're working as a leader is in my opinion, key to actually making a successful, first of all, working environment and also a project. So the trust is key there. If you can't trust your team, you have the wrong people working for you. And for me, it's really something that sometimes there is the wrong recruit. You can't always succeed in that. But then you have to try and find the best way of putting the people to the right spot in the team as well. So as a leader, you really have to look at the entire picture there and figure out how to make things work. And being honest and being available. Those are the things that for me personally, I think are key at Colossal Order, for example, why people actually want to work with us or for the company, and that they feel that they are part of the team, they are part of the organization, they are part of Colossal Order. And we have had basically, in the time that Colossal Order has been up and running, less than 1 people basically leaving us for other job or whatever per year. So in a sense, we have stability. We have people really wanting to stick with us, work on the projects. Even if I said in the beginning that we're kind of doing the same thing over and over again, it doesn't get boring when you're working in a great team, working on the projects that you really like. And the honesty bit, it's something that there is a fine line. And I wanted to bring this up because there's a fine line with the honesty that you have to be transparent, trust your team, and then you also have to protect them a little bit. And this is why I'm bringing this up is because we work with a publisher. And sometimes there is not only the panic that I used to have when I was starting in the industry, basically not knowing what I'm supposed to do, but also this kind of panic mentality can come from the publisher's side. And you don't want the team to be kind of aware of that. You need to be assertive, you need to be able to say them that everything is fine. And in that sense, you have to be transparent, make sure that everybody knows where the company is going, what is the plan, what are the objectives, goals in the company, and also so that not make them worry about things that they don't need to worry about. So keep them in a nice bubble where they really feel that they are respected, they are part of the team, but also know where to draw the line, that what is actually something that they actually need to know and what not. And the availability part, or me being available for the team, it's really important. When I'm working from the office, normally my door is always open. I make sure that even the people who have just started, they know that if they have anything they are worried about, they can always come talk to me. So when I was younger, I thought that I would have to kind of always keep up the brave face and never be tired, or always be like just going forward very strongly. I felt extremely liberated in a way when, for the first time, when we had a really tough project a few years back, which actually got cancelled, and after that I felt very overwhelmed. It felt like a huge failure, and it felt like I personally had failed the company as well. And being able to say that out loud and talk about it with the team was one of the best kind of team building exercises we have ever had in the company. Because showing that kind of weakness or talking about that failure really put the mindset there that it's everybody's right to share these feelings. And for Colossal and to be successful in the future as well, we have to early on notice things when they are starting to go wrong. Whether it be personal fatigue or that there's a feeling that something's not right in the project. And to be able to bring this forth and talk about it honestly together is really, really important. So at the same time, when we're in that beautiful bubble that everything is fine, when things start to look like they are not fine, we really need to be able to talk about them immediately to avoid bigger issues going forward. And for me, it really is all about working with people. So there are game projects, they come and go. We might have games that are more successful than the others, but what I do appreciate a lot is that I have very trusted colleagues, even friends nowadays at Colossal, and we really work well together. And to be able to bring more people into this kind of family of ours and explain our values and make sure that they understand what the company is about, that is really about the leadership, the work culture that we want to make sure that is there for at Colossal Order in the future as well. And when you have this kind of open, honest dialogue between the leadership and the team, it is the best risk management that you can basically have. And for me, as a leader, I think one of the most appreciated moments is that when I see somebody in the team succeeding. They have done something that they are really proud of. They share this to the other team, like, look what I have done here. And you can really be proud of the individual and the team when they get the project finalized. And I have to tell you, working on PC games, it takes a while. It's a hugely long project. It's very tiring. It can be challenging, but you have to enjoy those moments of success there between the project as well. So as a leader, I want to make sure that these are pointed out throughout the project, not just when the project is completely finalized, but we have to be able to talk about the failures and also raise the successes there between the project as well. And somebody once told me that CEOs, like when a CEO is successful, when they can just put their feet on the table and let things happen and watch things happen. And it should be so that you don't have to be constantly putting out fires. As a CEO or as a leader that you are doing things right when you have very, very little to do. And that was basically what I had to say for this, the start for the panel discussion. I'm very much looking forward to discussing with Tero and Jami about leadership. And one more thing, it's very tiring trying to be somebody else than what you are or who you are. So even as a leader, for me the biggest learning I have ever had is that I can be myself and then things are very easy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mariina. So, my name is Jami Laes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Futureplay Games. I didn't actually put any slides about the company or anything because I thought I'm coming to a panel discussion. So, there's one slide though there, but before we go into that one, maybe a little bit of background. I mean, Futureplay Games is going to be 5 years old in April this year. We're 34 people currently, going to be 35 hopefully soon, if one person signs. And we started between 5 of us, 5 co-founders, a little bit over 5 years ago already, kind of thinking about it. And our kind of funding or founding thoughts were that, let's not repeat the mistakes that we've been seeing repeated in bigger companies that we were in our previous working lives, etc. So kind of let's start from that, that mindful and fresh space where we don't have anything yet and everything is possible. And we don't need to adopt, we don't need to do, we don't need to force anything, any procedures or processes or organization or anything that we don't like or don't want. So we basically started from that position. But at the same time, between the 5 of us as co-founders, we thought that we really can do this. We can develop and publish games as long as we have, 5 MacBook Pros, a working credit card, good internet, lots of coffee, and whatever room where we can be in, hopefully in the same room, we can actually develop and publish games until the cows come home. And let's see what comes our way, and we'll fix it, we'll solve it, we'll hire more people who are smarter than us, etc. And that was the kind of the starting idea. And it says Futureplay Games aspiration over there, but it kind of the platform or the core loop or the pillars that we're trying to build the company on is based on these 4 things that I don't know how well you can see them. But there's 4 C's over there. There's company, culture, competence, and caring. And by company, where that kind of starts from is that we never, for example, tried to raise money going to VCs and saying that, hey, we want to build this game. We have an idea for this game. Can we get money to launch this game? Or prototype it, soft launch it, and then go to global launch or anything. We always raise money for ideas on building a company. How we're going to be different, how we're going to approach the market differently, what are the kind of competences and things where we're going to be successful as a company, not how any one of our individual games is going to be successful. And the culture part for us, basically what it means is that founding thought that let's not do anything, let's be organic. As soon as something starts to be a bother or starts to be a nuisance or starts to be an opportunity or starts to be a threat, like a biological organism, then let's react to that. Let's see if we need to, do something about it, we need to fix it, or we need to kind of capture that opportunity, or we need to defend against it, or we need to assimilate it, or accumulate it, or whatever we need to do. So let's only adopt things and kind of build something from the culture point of back into the company and fix that into our structures or the way we work or our behaviors or anything, only when it becomes meaningful. It's required by law, or we see profit in it, or it's productive, or anything that's positive. So nothing negative ever. And one of the things that one of the maybe leading thoughts that I've been holding on to for a long time is that I've been in companies where you can have all these kinds of vision boards and these houses that have the pillars, the vision and the mission and everything, and your core values at the bottom and all of that. But none of that really matters, because it doesn't matter what you have on those papers or on those boards on each room. or the pictures or anything like that. What matters is that, you know, culture doesn't define actions. It's the actions that define the culture. Who you are and what you are as a company, it's not dictated by what you say you are. It's only a sum of all the actions and behaviors and things that you actually do and don't do as a company and as a group of individuals. So that's why we've only kind of always believed in action and doing. You know, if it's not in the build, it's not in the build. If it's not in the market, it's not in the market. Slideware, vaporware, PowerPointware, etc. It doesn't really matter. So for us, for example, what that kind of means when going on to the competence part, which is one of the 4 C's, is that we've always believed in doing things quickly. So we have this concept of minimum awesome product, where we tried, because minimum viable doesn't cut it in games. If you think about it, there's 20,000 games every day going live into the app stores of the world, and the price point is free, so there's no, you know, switching costs for the players, except for learning that new game, learning the new mechanics and stuff like that. But there's ample free, great quality content out there in the stores for any player, any given day. So minimum viable doesn't cut it, but as a small developer, when, you know, on the competence part, when you don't have the scale, when you don't have the mass, we don't have 1,000 people working on our games, so we can't compete on the amount of content, or even on the high fidelity on some aspects of the content and stuff like that. So we got to be smarter, or we got to be faster, for example. And that's one of the things that we believed in, is that we try to go to market as soon as humanly possible. So we're very rigorous at scoping our projects. So we always go live with minimum awesome product. And whenever we've actually taken an idea that, hey, we want to go into this part of the market, it's always been 5 to 10 months, and we're actually live out there with the game. It doesn't mean that, you know, when we come up with thoughts and discussions about, hey, should we go here in the market or should we go there, that it happens immediately. We might talk about the area of the market, how to approach that for half a year, but once we set our sights, hey, we need to go there, then it's going to be usually like half a year, and we're actually live. Because we also believe that, you know, you can never actually really estimate or forecast or know what the players, what the market are actually going to think about your game, and is that really going to work, no matter how much you soft launch, if it's a market limited soft launch or platform limited soft launch. Nothing beats actual data. Nothing beats actual real players who are voting with their wallets and their time and all of that. So once again, believing in that action part, so things that actually have happened rather than anything else. And on the kind of competence part and culture and company part, still one of the things that we've always tried to do, rather than, you know, startups usually say that they want to fail quickly, fail fast, and find the kind of better things to do, but we always try to actually, you know, win quickly. We try to find little wins here and there, very small wins. And whenever we see something that, hey, this actually seems to work, let's pull on that one. And like a thread on a sweater, you try to pull on that and see how far it goes, and can you extrapolate, can you grow that, can you make it, you know, expand it, can you move that onto another product, that thinking that you found out to work and stuff like that. So always try to find really, really small wins here and there, and try to get to the big ones. And you know, by kind of building this organic culture and building this kind of business based on speed and momentum and action and tangible things, concrete things that actually work, we've always focused on trying to build a business and build a company. So rather than trying to focus on, hey, Mr. Investor, we need more money in 2 months or 2 years, etc., we're actually always trying to put the money to work as a business, so that we can stand on our own P&L, we can stand on our own feet and our own funding, and try to make that work. Because we think that through that, we can actually kind of afford the luxury of getting freedom from time and space. So we can do whatever we want. If we own most of the company and we are funding everything from the money that we make from our other games or previous games, etc. And we think that's way more liberating in a sense. And back to what Tero was saying about limitations, it actually sets a lot very rigorous and very concrete and very healthy business limitations, because you're actually trying to work on something that will work from a business point of view, rather than something that's hinging on the fact that do you get that next bit of funding to finish your project and see if it works. Then the kind of final part in the 4 C's here is that, you know, caring for us has been the 4th C, and something that we aspire more towards than what we have been able to afford so far. But always try to think that how can we use the company more as a vehicle for good. So at the center, like I have the big word success. To change the world, we want success, but not at any cost. So we've never wanted to succeed by trampling on others or exploiting others or being, bad to our competitors, our players, or our partners, or our, fellow companies or anything like that. And we had one slogan when we started. It was no bullshit. And no bullshit for us means, it's basically like a punk version of the golden rule. 2,000 years ago, it was made famous by this guy called JC, who had longer hair in the Western art tradition. 2,000 years before that, the negative of that was actually made famous by a guy named Confucius. I'm pretty sure he had long hair too. But basically, we think that as a company, if you don't do any bullshit, then you don't take any bullshit, then you treat everybody with respect, and you always do the right thing, sooner or later, good things will happen. If you, at the same time, also try to focus on building stuff that actually makes you successful, but not at any cost. So this is the kind of the 4 pillars or the core loop, what we're trying to use on a company level to kind of elevate ourselves as a platform, as a company, reach bigger heights, so that we can afford to do bigger games, so we can afford to do more good in the world, so we can afford to, do different things, and hopefully, as an end result, once we're all done and dusted, we can actually leave the world a better place. In terms of how we kind of actually work from a kind of creative leadership point of view, we have no directors, no producers. We don't even have product leads or game leads or anything. So all the teams are self-organized, self-managed. They set their own goals. They track their own progress, but they're accountable for everybody else. So everybody in the company is really looking at what the other teams are doing, and everybody has full transparency on what's happening on all the other teams, et cetera, and everything. And like Mariina said, that if you're successful, you can, as a CEO, you can kind of lift your feet on the table, even though I think that's a little rude. So I would just, relax and sit in your chair or on a sofa or something like that. But I get the idea. And the idea for me also has been all the time that I don't make any decisions. I'm not there to, fix problems or put down fires. I'm trying to be able to ask the questions that is going to enable us as a group, as a company, to figure out the right way to organize and the right things to do and the right ways of doing things and the right games to build, etc. And call it laziness or call it minimalism or call it trying to be smart. But in the long run, I think that that's how, for example, I as a CEO need to do a lot less work. And I have done a lot less work in the past 5 years than I did in the previous year before that, working in a corporation. No recurring meetings. I don't do email anymore at all, almost. So luckily found that one from Akko a couple of months back in my inbox. But it's just a different mindset. It's just a different way of organization and trying to just be there and be you, like you said. That's more of what it is. And it all does start from the people. But I think it's a good time to take it into the panel discussion, if that's okay. So thank you.
Thank you, Jami. And I'll ask everybody now come to the chairs, the speakers. Jussi will help us a little bit. You can keep that.
Okay. Should we go this way? I'll move here.
Let's
You want to come here?
This will be gone soon. All right, thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed your perspectives. There was very much same, but also differences, and that's very, very good always for the audience, that it's not just one song that you're singing together. I want to start with the softer question first. We go to the business quite soon, but I'm sure that the audience is here and online is interested also in our questions from the pre-task. There was one question that, what do you play? What's your favorite game? Do you consider yourself as a gamer? That would be one of the questions. And then the all-time favorite. You probably have at least one.
Well, I can start because I'm not a gamer. I have never really played that much games, and when I started in the industry, our publisher told me never to reveal this to anyone. I should always say that I'm a passionate gamer. I love games. I love Best Fiends when I'm at the airport waiting for a flight or sitting in a train. I usually drive a car, so I don't even play mobile games that much. I have one video game from childhood that I very fondly remember, and it's Theme Park. That is the ultimate simulation game, the best one ever. I think it was 1995 when I was playing it. And yeah, that's also one of the things that when I started working at Colossal and I got my hands on the first demo of City Skylines, it very much felt the same to me. And I thought to myself, thank God I actually like this game. It will be so much easier to sell.
That's very good, yeah.
I like to play games. I wouldn't say that I'm a hardcore gamer in a way compared to many of our developers. They play much more, and I couldn't kind of like compete with them with the games. But in a way, just to keep myself aware of what's happening in the market, yes, I try quite a lot of games. Don't necessarily play them for a long time, but every now and then you find a game that you just want to get back to. I think during the past 10 years, many of the Zelda games have been such, and then there are, in a way, some other games that I like to play with my children. And I must say our most recent game, Control, was launched. I actually did enjoy that, and for that sake I was playing quite many similar type of console games. We are not developing mobile games sometimes as a pastime. I like to play, in a way, try different mobile games. There is a lot of, I would say, innovation happening in the mobile field, and it's not all relevant to console and PC games, but I think some of those, in a way, innovations will be somehow visible, kind of like at some point in many other platforms as well. So I wouldn't say I'm a hardcore gamer, but like to try different games.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it. I'm a highly functioning ex-game addict, maybe. I mean, but I wish I would have time to play more. I mean, I play quite a bit, but it's mostly things that my boys want to play, like Roblox and Rocket League and Minecraft, and some of the Nintendo games nowadays. That takes most of the time. Then it's a little bit of the kind of PUBG here and there with the guys from work, but maybe what I spend most of my last 10 years playing has been more in the kind of NHL side of things, etc. I haven't had too much time to really play that much. But favorite games of all time, maybe Civilization 4 on the PC. And on mobile, the game that I always go back to, if I have 2 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours on an airplane flight, I forget about everything else and I play Battle of Polytopia. I don't need anything else. I love that game, and someday we'll do something about that to make it even bigger, because I just love that game for whatever reason.
I love it too. Yeah. Is that one of the ways that you keep yourself kind of like Tero said, that just to know a little bit what happens in the games, or is there like, what is your main way of keep yourself updated, what happens?
Oh, I do play a lot of games for work, looking at specific genres or specific competitors, but very rarely there's anything that kind of sticks. Very rarely there's anything that becomes a hobby. Very rarely there's anything that I really remember to go back to after that 1 week of really trying and going through to that kind of pinch where you have to buy, or where you really have to join a guild or a clan or something like that, and really kind of get into the habit of on the hobby level stuff. I do that quite a lot on specific genres, wherever we're thinking of going, or wherever seems to be, where the traction is when you look at the market, or where everybody seems to be playing. And guilty as charged, I use my kids as a test bed a lot. I usually, download stuff secretly on their iPads and iPhones and see if they start to play that stuff as a litmus test. If they don't, then hey, have you tried this game? Put it in front of their eyes and look at them over the shoulder. And then I ask them a day later and a week later and a month later to do the retention test, day 1, day 7, day 30, and see how it goes. I do the same for all the social platforms as well, that they're too young to use, but they're just so much better than I am.
Okay, we'll edit that out.
Yeah. Actually, I have a different perspective. I still remember I joined gaming industry in 2002, and of course back then the industry was different, and I hadn't played games at that point for years. Kind of like there was for some reason a small pause for me, and I at first thought that that's a real disadvantage, that I don't know the games in a way. I gradually started playing a bit more, but in the end it was interesting because at least back in those days, most of the people developing games, they were really passionate about those games, and especially when it was a game that they were developing. I was afterwards, many people said that it was always so good to discuss with you because you were objectives, kind of like you were calm, but you actually were able to look at kind of like from a higher perspective and pinpoint things that they hadn't thought of or they didn't want to see, kind of like some of the issues. And still now, in a way, maybe as a leader, maybe it fits to kind of like leading this type of bigger teams, that I have always been interested in seeing the bigger picture and how the business and organization and people and the games and technology, how they play together, and what type of simple processes would work, or how should we organize, or what type of project management methods should we develop further. And in a sense, maybe I've become one part of the team, that in a way I couldn't do it by myself, but this type of in a way personality may be needed in addition to all these kind of like really passionate people about games or technology. For your question, that is it the way to keep yourself in a way on par on what's happening in the industry? A bit it is. But then on the other hand, as I said, there are so many more people who understand the games much better. My main way is kind of like reading some market research, following what's happening, and then discussing with our people, because they have played all the new games. They are able to compare to the old games, give their personal opinion what's happening in the market, and that's in a way one of the key ways how I form my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very fond of basically delegating. So one of the things, like basically researching new games or the trends, everything like that, it is definitely somebody else's job in the company, not mine. I just need to show up at a like coffee break. We usually have like 2 o'clock afternoon coffee break, and I just throw any game there, and they will tell me what they think or feel about it. So in that sense, I don't really try new games that much myself. I do follow people playing games. I mean, I'm one of those people who actually watch like YouTube or Twitch, or I'm a huge fan of Counter-Strike. So I don't really like to play myself, but then I watch other people playing. So I'm one of those people.
Tero mentioned also the market reports. Do you go to conferences to keep yourself updated, or is the conference places where you actually don't have time to go and listen to what people have in presentations? What do you think about that?
At Colossal, we basically don't really care what's happening in the world at all. We're just doing our city builder thing. It's been now 5 years since City Skylines came out. We're still working on it, so people seem to enjoy it. If that stops, we have to figure out what we do next, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. Fingers crossed.
I actually go quite a lot to conferences, but not to watch the presentations. Those are the events when, in a way, people come together in this industry. And for me, be it CDC or E3, Gamescom in Germany, those are the moments when I have a chance within 1 week to meet the CEOs or the founders or key people from, in a way, 10 or 15 other studios. And in Finland, in a way, it's a community where information is shared quite freely, experience is changed. And for me, it's been the same with the other studio heads around the world. And I have really enjoyed that. And I see when a lot of them come from countries that haven't had this open discussion culture, they really appreciate that chance. And in a way, when you are sharing something, people are typically really open to share their experiences. And that's one additional way of building the understanding.
I do go to conferences a little bit as well, but I haven't really had time to kind of go and watch the talks that much for a number of years already. So it's mostly, like Tero said, meeting the other fellows in the industry. And meeting like potential partners and stuff like that. But we do have like few of our game ideas have actually originated from somebody from our team going into a talk at GDC or going to a talk at, well, mostly GDC actually, on 2 occasions, and being inspired about something there, and then asking the question and coming back and showing the talk to others, and starting to kind of pull on that thread, and pulling that thread, together with the larger team, that hey, maybe there's something in there if we approach this differently, and we do see the value of that, but not necessarily for us as leaders or CEOs. It's even more powerful when it's somebody from the creative team who's actually hands-on working with the potential future product, kind of getting that epiphany about, hey, we should do something like this.
Let's give a little bit, like in your presentations you had a little bit numbers of how many people are in the companies and what kind of teams, but let's give a little bit more background in the mid of the panel, that how big is your company, how many teams, and what kind of productions you do. So just to get like a fast review that we get how you are different from each other.
Well, if I start quickly, we're 34 people in total, which is about 21 maybe is in development, like actual game teams who are not social or community or marketing or QA or anything like that. So designers, artists, coders, if you will. And we're basically organized right now into 3 bigger teams. One is Battlelands, one is Idle, and one is our new puzzle team. And Battlelands takes care of Battlelands Royale and working on what we're going to do next along the lines of battle games. And the puzzle team is building 1 new puzzle game and a new engine for us for more puzzle games after that. We have a battle and puzzle focus for us next. We kind of do things for 2 years and then we move on to the next. That's the getting freedom from space and time. You can do whatever you want. So we tend to do that. And the 3rd team, the Idle team, is taking care of our 4 Idle games and also focusing on prototyping new stuff. And let's see what comes out from there.
Yeah, we actually have grown quite a bit since City Skylines came out. In 2015, we were 13 people when the game came out, and now we're 26, so we have massively doubled the size of the company in the last 5 years. We just have 1 team. We kind of divided 2 different departments, so we have code, art, QA, and then we have some our design department is actually 1 person. Though we did hire a writer as well now to help him out. So it's very flat hierarchy that we have. We have 1 producer. I'm trying to keep my hands off that team and what they're doing, always just checking in and making sure that things get done in the end. But basically there's a technical director leading the programmers, an art director and creative director. Art director is leading the artists, and the creative director is making sure that the design and art and everything goes together. But in a sense, it's a very, very flat organization and only one team in total in the companies of basically a little bit over 20 people.
Yeah, we are 260 people. You could say that there are in a sense directly game related. There are 5 teams. We have a technology and tools team that is developing the underlying technology, game engine, certain in a way technology modules like AI, the animation systems, but most of all also the tools that are used all the game teams then to create the content. That's our Northlight team. It's 40 people. Then we have 4 game teams. 2 bigger teams that are now in the production phase, in a way developing, I would say, with bigger teams that for us 15 to 100 people approximately. And then we have 2 other, as we call them, smaller teams between 10 to 20 people in the earlier phases of the production. So we have 4 game development projects ongoing. And then we have not that much, between 20 to 30 people who are more in the support functions, be it in the management, HR, finance, administration, PR, marketing, IT. But that's how we structure.
Yep. So 30 some, and then quite large for the Remedy in comparison. In Finland, we don't have that many big companies, but a lot of, or quite many of the middle-size what we would call in game industry, in the business in general, those are small companies. Do you think that what is like biggest differentiator between you as companies? Is the size of the teams, or is the platform, or is it the product, or how does the leadership, from your perspective, maybe comparing to others, could differ? Or is it just the same game but kind of scaled up or down?
Well, I think the combination, in a sense, is for this panel is quite good, because of course Jami represents the mobile gaming, which is quite a unique part of the industry, a huge part, growing part, almost I would say almost 50% of the total global industry overall. Then in a way we are doing console and PC games, but it's been in a way quite console driven in the past, and then our games are also focused on the PC side. But then Mariina, what you are doing is fully on the PC, and I would say a service-based game which has been growing and living for 5 years.
Yeah, I think I agree with Tero on this basically. And for us at Colossal, we really have very little similar companies in Finland to us, basically working on PC simulation games in a way we do. However, there are quite a few from Tampere actually, which is funny because we're kind of like the center of PC simulation games in Finland now. So there's Iceflake working on Surviving Aftermath, and then there was the Fragment, or I'm not sure what, Reborn. So they worked on some simulation games. But basically it is very much so that we, for example, compare ourselves to Maxis, and we want to be the next Maxis. That is our kind of benchmark, like Maxis pre-2013. But anyway, so we really don't see that much similar things happening in Finland at what we're doing, or we're not really comparing ourselves to different Finnish companies, but we do want to chat with them and learn from them. So that's a good thing in Finland.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to speak for all the Finnish mobile gaming companies, but I think between us three, there are very, very big differences in that sense that, you know, at the size of Remedy, at the size of us, 260 and 34, yeah, we're organized in a very different way. Everything is a lot more organic in our company. And I think also compared to Colossal Order, we have no directors. We don't have a creative director, art director, or tech director. We never had that. I mean, it's all kind of distributed decision making and shared responsibilities, or distributed responsibilities that are organically, you know, as a baton kind of put wherever it makes sense organically at that point in the organization. You could still say that we're an ongoing experiment rather than, you know, a fully fledged publicly listed company, which we're not, or anything like that. But, you know, it seems to be going okay, so we're not trying to change that. But talking to even similar, or even like half of our size, 15-something people, Finnish mobile gaming companies, we do have a lot more organic structure than anybody that I actually know. We're even more organic than Supercell and all of that, kind of how they've structured their things. We kind of cut from the same tree in a way. We started thinking it this way with the Supercell guys who were working in the same company, Digital Chocolate and Sumia, back in 2008 and 10, when they started to depart from there. And I went to Playfish in London and then to Rovio. But it's just a different way to organize, and you have to start small to be able to do that. It's kind of harder to retrofit to a larger organization that has lots of ongoing responsibilities, or a big game, or a publisher relationship, or anything like that, because it's a lot to swallow for external, third parties and everything who don't see that it actually works.
May I actually ask you? So basically, what really interests me is like, what kind of level of employees do you have? Like, how many? Like, do you have more senior level employees to be able to work with that? Because for us, at least, it's very difficult to recruit basically senior level people in Tampere. So we have quite a lot of juniors. So for me at least, that sounds really exciting what you guys are doing. But could you share a little bit like what type of people do you have working for you?
Sure. I mean, it is a mix, and you always try to keep it as a mix, that it's, very senior people, 20 years in the industry, people with 10 years, relevant experience in their trade, experts, etc. And also people who are in their first job in gaming. They've had some internships or some traineeships, and they have education on it, but they've necessarily never been more than a summer job or two worth of, or maybe a year of experience in the industry. We have maybe 4 people who are in their kind of first longest standing full-time game industry job now at us for 1 or 2 years. So you could say that I would say that it's probably like less than 1/4 can be juniors, and it does have its limitations in terms of who can actually kind of be the nucleus for a new project, for a new team that's going to kind of go where no man or woman has ever gone before and go and look for that piece in the market. Because if you've never done anything for the first time as a lead developer, a lead artist, lead designer, etc., even though we don't call our developers, artists, and designers leads, and designers, artists, and coders, and juniors, etc., but you need to have that experience, or you need to go together with somebody who's kind of done that before or done it well before. So it's a delicate balance that we're always trying to strike, because at the same time we're very cognizant of the fact that experience is valuable, but experience can also make you not see certain things and make you creatively exclude certain things. Like Tero said in his talk, it is that valuable tool set or toolbox that you develop over the years, but sometimes experience makes you only use the tools you have. And if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and that old adage and everything. So you got to mix it up with different cultures, different backgrounds, different minorities, different juniority, seniority levels. So we try to keep a spectrum. But it does make its limitations, how you can assemble teams in a small organization like ours.
Yes, let's just explore that more.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of talk, like Mariina pointed out, to hire talent, and that doesn't obviously come only from Finland. But how is your recruitment process? Who does the recruitment things, and how do you lead that process? Are you yourself hands-on with that, or how does it work in your company?
I am extremely hands-on on that, mainly because we don't hire that much. We don't have HR basically at all. We look at open applications. If we find something that looks interesting, then I ask appropriate people. It's like, we got this application, there's a programmer, I ask basically our technical director, what do you think? I always interview them first to kind of get a feel how they are, like if they would be a good fit for the company. There's always an interview, depending on the position, of course, different kind of tests and things like that. But in a sense, we're such a small team that it is very much on my shoulders, the recruitment part.
Yeah, I could give, because we are in a way 260 people, some background, because one of our key principles has all the time been that we need to have empowered people and empowered teams. So even though we have big project teams, we in a way, when the team has come up with their evaluation, where are we, what's the objective, what is the vision, where we need to aim at, they have their in a way development method. Sometimes it can be agile, in some games it can be some other model that they are following. Then when in a way the team has clear plans or ideas where they want to go, even though the goal is kind of like changing, modifying along the way, of course, when not the answers are being answered in the early phases. We always, as a management, we have an internal, in a way, stage gate process where we expect the team to have quite clear view where they aim to be, for example, in 2, 3, 4 months' time. And then they know, in a way, what's expected from them, but then they have a lot of freedom in how they want to accomplish that next, in a way, gate with their own team. And then we are using some best practices and learnings for the console and PC gaming, how they could organize themselves. And the idea is that they could organize into smaller squads, where basically it's smaller teams, more free-form teams that are working for their own objectives. And now we have 4 different teams, and we have been able to attract a lot of talent, but it's quite clear that especially the type of games that we do, that people, yes, they do appreciate Remedy as an employer, But that's typically one thing that they learn to appreciate throughout years. One of the biggest motivations still definitely is kind of like the type of games we do. They want to be part of that. In a way, how professional the colleagues are with whom they are able to work. Are they getting a role that's meaningful for them? Do they have personal development opportunities? And then, of course, all the practical things. What is the salary? What type of bonus opportunities there are? Kind of like how good is this place for their family? In a way, all these things, but in a way, in order to provide this career opportunity, the multi-project model that we have 4 different projects has been really good, because console, as Mariina said, your projects can last for 5-6 years because it's a living project all the time ongoing. And I think it's been amazing if your employee, in a way, turnover has been that low that only 1 person per year is leaving, because what we saw in the past when we only had 1 project, that it was a challenge that many of the ambitious people, they want to progress in their career, learn more, and when we only had 1 project, there was always the glass ceiling. We had the kind of like awarded art director or the creative director or the lead programmer, and in a way, if you were a senior level people and you were advancing, how could you become that person who is kind of like still more experienced? Now with multiple projects, we have been able to, in a way, build different career paths for people. But then it brings another point that then people don't have this permanent home, that they still in a way expect certain group of people to whom they can permanently belong to. And that led us a few years ago, in a way, to start building our supervisor organization that comes with the idea that we try to have permanent discipline groups, that if you are a character artist, you would have a character artist team with whom you are in a way sharing experiences. You have a supervisor who's in a way checking out how you are doing, what would you like to do next, and preferably that person is also a character artist who understands what you are doing. And now in a way when we have that structure and it works well and people seem to like it and it works, our recruitment goes in a way that our projects and our discipline leads are able to say that, okay, when they look at the project plans that we are having and the type of games we are developing, we feel that kind of like during the next 12 months time, we would need this type of new character artist and this type of animator, and then it becomes to our HR. And we actually have 7 people in our HR department, and 3 of them are full-time recruiters. They are doing nothing but recruiting, but they are in a way sourcing the market and trying to find out good candidates, get applications in, and they are then seeing that those applications in a way are processed well in the organization, and then they participate, those discipline leads. And it's been working, but for our sized company, when we look for specific skills, last year we hired over 50 people, and in order to do that, we received 2,700 applications. And those were all processed, and in order to do it in a way that you are not burdening too much of those discipline specialists, it's been a constant development. I think we are doing it well, improving all the time, but this in a sense showcases that when we have reached a certain point, then definitely you do need quite well-thought processes, because without that it would be chaotic and no one would be happy.
Tero, you've been talking with other CEOs in the other parts of the world. Is this a similar type of matrix system that other companies of the same size is adopting?
I think it differs a lot. There are, I think in many senses we have tried to use some best practices also beyond games industry. I think gaming companies are good in some things, in some other things they are not. And typically many of the gaming companies have not been kind of like that good in managing the growth, how they organize themselves, how in a way some of those boring processes actually can make your life easier when you reach a certain point, but those have been overlooked quite a lot. And one of the clear indications of that is that when you look at how often, in a way, in gaming industry, you get a news that some game is being delayed by 6 months, by 12 months, it's always there is some excuse, when in reality, in the end, the reason is always in the mirror, and very often it's about bad, in a way, bad project design, bad project management. Then you hear, in a way, information how there are teams in some parts of the world who are crunching 12 months, 18 months, people are being burnt out. Those are all results of somehow bad leadership and bad management. And it's not that people, in a way, aim to do that, but in order to manage the bigger organizations, certain kind of like structure and processes are needed, and they are there also to help the team and prevent this type of events from happening.
Yeah, Jami, do you want to share also your word of wisdom for the flat organization mobile teams?
For recruitment or
for the recruitment? Yeah.
Yeah, for recruitment, I mean, when we started with 5, obviously everybody was interviewing, and we did for quite a long time, for many years, that everybody in the organization had the chance to meet all applicants, and it was like a 360 interview process. So every candidate met future peers and future, colleague, friends, even if they wouldn't be in the same team. And a couple of rounds looking at kind of trying to go beyond or deeper than what you can see from the skills and the experience and the what can that person do and how can they do it and stuff like that. Really trying to get kind of deeper into the why would you want to join this organization that's going to leave you alone, so that you need to figure out where to go next. You need to figure out how to develop yourself. You need to figure out how to lead yourself. You need to figure out how to manage yourself. Why would you leave that cushy job in a corporate company and come here and become an entrepreneur employee? So we were trying to peel that layer off from people that, do you really understand what you're walking into? That there's no guarantee that somebody's going to tell you, here's your task list and pat on the back, job well done, because you literally need to manage yourself in our organization. You have no boss, you have no supervisor, there is no disciplines, there is no expertise organization, we have no matrix. Nobody looks after you in that sense, like looking over your shoulder and setting the next marker for you to pick up. But at the same time, we started seeing when we're kind of nearing towards 30 that, hey, this still works, but we've been through that before. And then once we would have, hit 50 or hit 70, we would have noticed that shit, we're 2 years too late on actually introducing some of these processes. So we don't call her HR because we don't like the word HR, but she's our employee experience person, started last summer. And we started kind of paving the way of figuring out together and defining together these things, whether you call them HR processes or whatever, that we know we're going to need sooner or later. And some of them are, mandatory by law. Some of them are just mandatory by your size and stuff like that, and not by law, but you will just need them when you reach a certain size. So we're kind of jumping the gun a little bit too early so that we know that we won't be too late once we need those. Because we aim to grow a little bit. We're not trying to grow and trying to recruit a lot more people. We're basically looking for 2 people at the moment, a designer and a game developer. That's all right now. And we always go kind of organically, like everything in our company, that once we feel like, hey, now we're taking the next step, let's grow some more, let's hire more people here and start another team and build another project. So we're kind of prefacing that now, getting the organization ready in terms of HR and recruitment and thinking about career paths without career paths and thinking about personal development without personal development. Everything is so zen in our organization that it's kind of hard to do. How to lead without leading, how to manage without managing, how to direct without directing. It's cool, but it's freaking hard sometimes. So I welcome the exercise if anybody wants to try to do that on a company level, because it's kind of refreshing after corporitis.
I am super interested to know of your tips and tricks or any kind of thoughts, like all of you seem to kind of require some kind of self-organization within the game company for the employees. How do you know that? How do you, when you have your processes of recruiting, how do you pick those people? How is it possible to find? Because I don't think that it's trivial to find people that can lead themselves. How do you find those talents?
Well, I mean, I think that's nowadays a given. Like, you have to be able to lead your own work. There is, for example, even though we have those creative directors and technical director, and they are not your supervisors in a sense, that they're not going to be there holding your hand through your tasks. You are given a certain feature or a set of the game that you need to be working on, and then it's up to you to, you know, get it done. And for that, I think I mean, recruiting is hard. You can't always tell if the person is suitable in the end, if they even want to work in the company, if they find it too odd or too difficult to get into the space where there is no supervisor. And I mean, you're like next level on the no leadership and no leads and things like that. But I do recognize some of the things in our organization that it is really for people who can manage themselves. And we have always 6 months trial period, which is, it goes both ways. It protects the employee and it protects the employer in a sense that if you get into this new company, this new project, and you find it not suitable, you can just leave with basically, and you should leave. I think people are way too scared to pick the job that they really want to do. And you definitely should try to find a company and a project that really fits who you are. And at Colossal, we are very picky. We have not hired many people. When we get the people we like, we tend to try and keep them. And I think it's really something that even nowadays studying in a university, you need these skills. You're not going to be able to get through university without having self-management skills. That's the kind of latest place where you will learn it, or you have to learn it. If you look at the education now, I mean, even high school students need to have these skills. I think let's not go too much into that, but at some point in life you have to really learn that. Or then if you work in the game industry, you have to find a place where there is that really strong leadership. There is that you're given a certain task and somebody will watch you do it and tell you, like, is this good enough or not? We don't have that. If somebody starts to basically not get their work done, it is noticed eventually at some point, but there is nobody picking up the slack. We don't have, if you're sick, your tasks are waiting for you when you get back. There is no kind of backup for that. And everybody, I think this is something that also makes the people really feel like they have the ownership and the control over their work and what they're doing. And then you can really have that pride of what you're doing. You can look at the game and say, like, that's my doing over there. And it's really important for people to have that ownership. And I think that's one of the things that as leaders, we really need to be able to provide this for the employees, the team members, because when they have something of their own there, they really are connected to the company and to the project, instead of just somebody telling you what you need to do.
Yes, and maybe it's kind of like emphasized even more here in Finland and in the Finnish gaming industry, but in a way, companies are really human. People are trusted, people are respected. In a way, all of the, I would say typically Finnish companies, Scandinavian companies, Finnish game industry companies, they want the best for their people. They in a way do give, in a way, a lot of power to people. And it even goes well with the kind of like the work psychology, that one of the biggest motivators is the autonomy, that you actually have power in your job. And I'm not sure how much in a way companies think it from that perspective, but I think most of the people already are working accordingly, that they try to provide a meaningful work that the people want to do. They try to provide support, but enough autonomy for the people to enjoy what they are doing. But then of course the other side is that you need to be able to self-manage. You need to have in a way certain kind of like drive for goals, ability to manage your own workload, in a way, certain determination to get things done. And that's what I already said, that one of the basic things is, in a way, even in leadership, to be able to lead yourself. And it starts from the fact that, for example, one of my routines, even though we have quite clear plans, is kind of like on Monday mornings, I'm still checking at my list that these are the things that we should be able to make happen as a company, as a core management team. These are the things that I should be doing. Typically that list is always too long, so I need to prioritize that these are the important things, and then I need to hold myself accountable that, okay, I will make this happen. They are not always fun things. Many of them, fortunately, are fun things, but in a way, then I oversee that these things that I'm supposed to do, they get done. And when I'm looking at my teenage boys or my kind of like younger children, I have 4 children, I think even with them, if they need to clean their rooms, they should have some mental picture that what are the things they should be doing, and I'm trying to motivate them that just pick 1 or 2 most important things and make it happen. I know it's not easy, but in a way that's the learning, and those are the basic things that apply for anything, and for all of us sometimes it's difficult, but that is the self-management that's expected. And I also know that sometimes we have, mainly in a way, younger people who haven't learned those skills. They can be learned, but it's so highly appreciated when you have people that in a way they are discussing and they try to make kind of like it clear for themselves what they should do, and then they try to start doing, and it doesn't matter if they fail, if they just discuss and kind of like ask help. But this is definitely the self-management part that is highly appreciated. I think already nowadays, but most likely even more in the future.
I think it kind of goes beyond self-management in that sense, that it's not just about can you manage yourself by setting goals and following up on your tasks and actually complete your tasks. In a small company like ours, the biggest kind of epiphanies or small business wins that we found out, the strings or the threads that we've been pulling, come from the fact when a lot of people in the company actually feel responsible on a wider sense, responsible more than T-shaped people or Y-shaped people or X-shaped people, that they actually care for the business and they understand the business. We've done specific education on going through the system dynamic in 17 different scenarios on where to pull on the threads, launch a new game, increase retention, put $1 million in marketing, get 10 million installs from Apple, etc., and gone through the system dynamic mathematically and shown to people how does this business work and what are the levers and what are the conversion points, what are the inflection points, how is the math working, what goes to the top line, what goes to the bottom line, which are the kind of all the different things you can affect and how you can actually grow the business or make profit and stuff like that. And that has caused that a lot of people, almost everyone, actually in the company sees these opportunities or sees these threats or looks at these responsibilities that they might not be in any way related to in their day-to-day work, being an artist and thinking about, hey, we should do something about that French localized playable ad that we have running on that network because that doesn't really work well with the French blah, blah, blah culture or whatever. But my point is that it's not just about self-management, it's actually feeling responsibility. Like it goes inside your skin and you feel like it's my thing and I'm not waiting for somebody else to come and figure out if the house is on fire or if we could make more money or if we're losing money or whatever it is, but they actually feel the responsibility. And once you get into that part, then magical and beautiful things will happen automatically and people will feel the pride, they will feel the drive, even more about, hey, I'm able to choose what color to paint my room, but they're like, shit, yeah, this is my room, this is my kingdom, I care for this. It's a different thing.
Oh my God, so many nice threads that we could go from here and the time is getting short. So I will just throw this very kind of maybe difficult question for you. I don't know, maybe it's easy. So you all have been learning throughout these years and you've been doing a lot of leadership and some of you in many different companies. What would be your worst mistake as a leader? Or most interesting one? The ones that you can maybe talk about. Jami is the brave one.
Yeah, I can't come up with any specific simple thing as a worst mistake, but being almost like maybe 15 years on an active journey on trying to kind of develop myself and lead myself and go where I want to be, and it's the active learning of just trying to do less and trying to talk less and trying to tell less, etc., and trying to direct less and just trying to remove myself from the equation. You know, there is no self and nothing but the self and all that. It's all about Zen in the end. You will see. Just give it 20 years. But the point is that that's the only way you can actually feel free yourself. For example, in trying to work in a complex and complicated business like ours and really trying to give people responsibility, the only way to give them responsibility is to never take it back. And that literally means that you have to set them free. Otherwise, you take it back, like a candy from a kid, etc. And I know this sounds harsh, and it might sound like a metaphor that doesn't really work, but if you really think about it, you can never get that taking back feeling away. You either have the freedom or you don't. It's as simple as that. And it's taken me a long time to understand that that's the hard thing about letting go, is that you can never grab onto it again if you let go.
I think I have made a lot of mistakes in my career, which is human, and it's completely okay. We have failed as a company at times, and I have failed as an individual. And I think one of the reason for all of this, and that is the learning that I definitely have, is not trusting my instinct. I think all the things that have gone wrong was that when I had that slight caution or that nagging feeling that this is somehow not right, I didn't immediately take action, but I kind of let it stay there and was like, let's see how this goes. And it never goes well, at least in my experience. So definitely to be able to act, even if it's unpleasant, and especially in a company where you have people working, there are a lot of unpleasant things, and you sometimes have to just get over kind of yourself, and you need to be able to take action on certain things. And it is very easy to avoid actually confronting certain, well, how would I say it, unpleasant or challenges, yeah, thanks. When you can just kind of let it be and ignore it. And they will always, it just gets bigger and bigger. So the challenge is not gonna go away on its own. So that's definitely, for me, in the 10 years that now I've been in game industry or worked as a leader or CEO, all the things that have, where I feel I have failed, have started kind of me just ignoring the problem and thinking it will go away if I just don't look at it.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting question. But I'm also, when I'm thinking back, I've been in a way a leader in gaming industry for the past 18 years. It's actually interesting to think back. When I started, I became a CEO of a small company in 2002. I was back then maybe 27 years old. And not that experienced, but I had learned from my consultancy, and maybe already before that, and I always tried to build the kind of like bigger view that, okay, where are we at the moment, and what's affecting our business from the external world, and what are our strengths and weaknesses, and trying to build kind of like then that, okay, here we are, and what are the opportunities, and where should we go, trying to define some sort of a goal and then formulate a plan how to get there. And I think I was already from the early days, I was quite good in participating other people, which definitely has been good. It was the right thing. But then there was too much ambition, in a sense that what I have learned afterwards is that sometimes you simply don't understand enough to make yet the full plan, that the goal should be maybe just to explore this topic more, or to try something that we would learn more, because we can't even yet pose the right question that to what should we build a plan. And sometimes you are able to present the right question, that is this segment for us, or is there a market for this type of a game? And I think kind of like back in the days, I was too ambitious and eager to, in a way, get the understanding of the people and then create a big presentation and big action plan what we should do. And sometimes it would kind of like, it was misleading that some of our customers would buy them, or the kind of like finance part, getting kind of like some VC money, they were eager to kind of like for this big vision, when in reality it was not realistic enough. It wasn't kind of like stepwise the right approach for the changing market. So that was one of the things. And in the end, there were some projects where I think we wasted 2 or 3 years' time just for the sake that we should have been kind of like more down to earth and being able to say to ourselves that we don't yet understand enough. Our next goal has to be to understand more, or to kind of like get answer to these type of questions. And then there has been some learnings also, as I said, what I have learned, that it's good that you have a team that's really devoted and passionate about what they are doing, but as a leader, you need to support them to succeed. And there is, for example, a difference between sympathy and empathy, that sometimes people are saying that I want this, but as a leader, sometimes you need to be able to say that I know you want that, but this is what you need. And I've seen quite often that, in a way, for example, for two small teams that have wanted to make a really big thing and they are really passionate, and then they burden themselves, and we should have seen as leaders that that's not realistic, it's not going to happen. Or sometimes we have been in the past too ambitious in trying to accomplish something, and we have put too junior people in trying to make it happen, and should have understood earlier that that's not enough. And this type of failures, I think, throughout the 18 years, yes, those have happened, most likely kind of like number of other things, but it's a learning process also for us.
Thank you so much for sharing. I would like to ask so many other stuff. I'm going to give the stage to the audience soon, but I want to briefly go to the work-life balance that you've been mentioning quite many times. So how do you keep yourself and your employees healthy while they do this passion work? How do you manage that?
Well, it's one of the basic values that we are using, that there has to be work-life balance, no question of that. And I think overall working in Finland, it's also a different thing in that sense that it's even set by law that we are following all the time the hours that our people are clocking in, and kind of like it's one part of the supervisor process that we need to follow how many hours people are doing. If they are doing too much, then we need to discuss with those people that why is this, what can we do to help you. In a way, people have flexible hours. Of course, we are paying for the extra time, but most of all, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint in that sense, and we know that kind of like if people start clocking in too many hours, kind of like it lasts for weeks, then something is wrong. It's not something where we aim at. The difficulty sometimes is that when you give the opportunity for people to define their goals and they are ambitious, we, for example, take some artist, and in a way, it's very rare that they would say that actually now this is ready and now this is perfect, I'm fine with that. And it's really hard, but sometimes from outside kind of like a lead or a kind of like producer needs to come and just say that this is now really good, it's enough. And it's not always easy. Those people are ambitious and kind of like they think that kind of like quite soon 1 million or 2 million players will see what I have created. I don't want to leave it here. So that's one part of it also, that people sometimes want to do much more, which we think is not healthy. But that again comes to the question that it's not always what someone wants to do, but what we think that they they should do sometimes.
Yeah, it's definitely a core value, and also, law. There is in Finland actual laws defining how long can you work, and I agree with passionate people. It is something that they don't understand always, that when you work long hours, for example, let's say that you work for a week over like 16-hour days, because you're very eager to get something done. The productivity decreases immensely. So I don't want to pay people for overtime when they are not as efficient as if they would work the normal hours and get things done faster and more carefully. Because when you work overtime and you work like you don't have a proper work-life balance, what happens is that you get tired and you get sloppy. And I don't like my employees being sloppy or tired. So we have strict 7.5 hours daily work time, in a sense that there is flexibility, as long as it averages out to 37.5 a week. And if like that is one thing that we do supervise, is the monthly work hours. The producer goes through those, and just like Tero said, if there seems to be an issue with somebody, we do talk to them. We have one person in the company, especially notorious working overtime or too much. So we have even had to put him on like vacation I told him not to come back in like for the next 2 weeks. Trying to teach him a lesson. It's like, you work too much, you're not allowed here. So it is something that I feel that it is our responsibility to protect our extremely passionate and eager game developers from themselves, because they don't always know how to do it. Then there is a lot of other things than just checking the hour list that we do. We talk about the values. We have days dedicated to employee happiness, in a sense that we eat cake and we might go do some exercise, and there might be some kind of lecture about how to improve your sleep rhythm or whatever that makes you healthier and happier, and providing different hobby things. Like we have a movie club, and we have people playing role-playing games, and all sorts of things that are we do things on the free, like together in the free time as well. So trying to kind of really emphasize the fact that work is just one part of your life. You should have also something else there. Work is important part of your life, but it is not the only thing you should have in your life. And I think it's extremely important to have that culture and teach this, especially to the juniors coming into the industry. And luckily nowadays, it's not anymore the case that people tell these stories where they bravely fought this winter war, getting a game finished, 6 months of overtime. I did not sleep for weeks before the release. It was something that when I joined the industry, these stories were told to me with like pride and like glamour, like this is the game industry. And I decided then that in our game company, this will not be the case. So Cities in Motion, the very first game we made, there was no overtime spent for that. And we, I didn't realize this back then, but we actually delivered the Goldmaster version, the very final version of the game, 1 day earlier than it was due. And the publisher went nuts. They did not know what to do. And I didn't realize that that's some kind of a thing that, oh, you're not supposed to, deliver it on time. But that is something that we take pride in. And as Tero mentioned earlier about the schedule and basically the workload, if you fail, if the game is delayed, that is the leadership that is failing, that is the management that is failing. And I take pride in the fact that our projects are done on time with good enough quality. And that is one of the keys that you will eventually learn in the industry, that it needs to be good enough quality. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Well, lots of things that don't need to reiterate, but we do a lot of lectures and make sure that people don't work overtime. We never have overtime or crunch or anything like that. Then we only work like 4.5 days a week anyway. We have what we call future playgrounds every Friday, half the Friday. First we have vegan lunch for everyone at 12 or 11:30, and then you can do whatever you want as long as it's legal for the rest of the, or start your weekend early. Usually people prototype, innovate, learn, tutor, train, etc. Watch tutorials together or start brainstorming or whatever, or teach each other a technique or a shader or something. But it's there as flex time, so that if you do need to finish something for the weekly build, you can do that. Or sometimes we have lectures during that time, or sometimes you want to focus on building a prototype or whatever. But that's the buffer, so you don't never need to actually do overtime or do crunch or whatever, because we have that flex half a day a week always built in there as well. And I think it's also about the kind of the example you set and all the things that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint and all of that, but it's kind of having that kind of relaxed ambition that you know that you have to be able to keep at it for such a long time to find that one that really hits it. For us, where we come from a place where we need to launch multiple games, right? It's not like we have our thing yet or anything. And the only way to do that is to make sure that you stay fit as a company, as all the individuals and the teams and the corporation, the company, everything. You have to take good care of that. And the only way to do that is to, make sure that you don't overwork yourself or do any unhealthy things. On a personal level, I just don't work. I don't open up email or Slack or anything when I leave the office or over the weekends. When I'm home, I'm Spider-Man on the floor with a 5-year-old, and I don't think about Futureplay. It doesn't exist. It goes back to my mind when I walk into the office.
Thank you. I think we have a small leadership problem here because I let this go over time, but there is a room for 2 questions from the audience. Let's give that a chance. So if anybody wants to ask something, Teemu raised the hand first, so let's get the throw mic.
Yes, we have another microphone here.
Thank you, Jussi.
I can throw this one.
Yeah.
Don't, please.
There we go. So I want to go back, since we have aspiring leaders, hopefully in this room as well, back to the the start of your CV. What kind of motivations and ambitions did you have at that time when your CV kind of the first leadership kind of mark in your CV became to be? What inspired you, or did you have some kind of opportunity that you took that this is where my leadership career started, or was there any of that, or was it just a smooth kind of drifting to that?
Should I go first? Maybe it's the traditional thing that I wasn't very good artist, I wasn't a very good coder, I wasn't very good in anything. I was more of a generalist, and having a fixed mindset so that I could actually see all the details and think of the bigger picture. I got thrown into those opportunities from a young age, from like 15, started producing things and started running things, role-playing clubs and independent comic books or whatnot. And if you have any of those kinds of opportunities, or taking the leadership position in projects here at Aalto and stuff like that, any opportunity that you can get where you can kind of get a feel for that, is this actually something I can do and not feel miserable? Is this something that I can do and not everybody else make them miserable? Can you do it successfully on a smaller scale? And learning more about yourself rather than getting that actual tangible work experience, I think it's more important that then you can kind of look yourself in the mirror and think, hey, I could maybe get this someday. I could maybe be good at this. This is what I should focus on. I think that's more important than the actual concrete industry-specific leadership experience.
My career is purely based on luck. I was offered a beer and I said yes. And that's how I became the CEO of Colossal Order. For me, my mom said that I have always been the one actually like managing the play at the playground already, basically telling other kids what to do. That's kind of, I was kind of born with the annoying, feature in me that I want to boss people around. And for me, I was already very active on riding club organization. I was the head of the board, I think, when I was 16 or 17. So it didn't feel odd to me that I would actually run a company. I took it as a challenge, and I really felt that how hard can it be? And here we are.
Yeah, it's if I won't go back to my childhood or teenage years, but when I was studying here, kind of like it was mid-90s, I still remember I took some studies from the industrial economics, and back in those days there wasn't that much collaboration with companies, and some of the tasks that we were supposed to do was to make kind of like read a book and make a summary out of that, or kind of like in the strategic class kind of like analyze big Japanese corporations, what should they have done kind of like in this situation, and I didn't understand it all. It was way too kind of like big for me, and I remember when I approached our professor that instead of doing that, would it be possible if I took some friends and we would start calling companies and see if they have some real life problems? And I still remember my professor was really excited that's cool. And then we called, and it was really kind of like motivating to do the job. And I think we spent most likely 10 times more time to that than we should have otherwise. But then they provided. We asked that, would you provide kind of like for this job a kind of like how do you call the työtodistus, the certificate that we have done a project. So I had that, and then the next kind of like courses came, and we agreed the same. And now we were calling the companies, and they actually paid for us because we already had work experience. And it turned out that I started liking it, and it was in a way taking responsibility and in a way delivering something and being responsible for something. I just somehow saw that I like it, and it was providing also something meaningful, achieving something. I think I was motivated. Then I think that was a motivation for me to go to consultancy, which was quite similar, and quite soon I was running projects. And maybe in that sense it taught me something, but I like to manage in a way small teams and together in a way achieving results. And then what happened to me with this background was a bit similar than with Mariina, that I still remember when one of my university friends called me. I hadn't talked to him for a year. He called that, what are you doing nowadays? And I'm actually part of a small gaming company, and it's really talented 3 people that we have, but they have now started to understand also themselves that if they would have someone with kind of like more business understanding and drive and project management, they could do so much more. Would you like to join as a CEO? I was thinking that I have no idea what it means to be a CEO, but in a way the opportunity opened up. It was daunting, but then I just decided that yes, definitely I want to do it. And it was basically in a way jumping to the train, even though I knew that it's most likely going to be a shaky road and moving too fast. But then in a way you learn along the way.
Yeah. There is the other question, and that's the final question, and then we'll move on.
Okay. So I'm kind of curious about like how much do you micromanage and how much do you intervene yourself with interpersonnel issues? When 2 things goes off between 2 employees or 2 teams, like how much do you exclude yourself from it, or how much do you include yourself into it and deal with it personally? So, yeah.
Typically, if we need to micromanage, then something has gone wrong, kind of like much earlier. It's definitely trying to give the autonomy and kind of like independence to the teams, and within the teams to people. We have that big teams that typically, in a way, sub-teams have leads and managers, and in a way they need to take care of that this type of situations don't occur. Of course, sometimes when this type of situations do arise, for example, between 2 people, some things are not working, and for some reason it's not solving out, then basically then we need to kind of like discuss personally with those people what's the topic and try to sort it out. But I'm happy to see that it's very rare that anything like this would occur.
Yeah, definitely no micromanagement. At Colossal, we're such a small team that if there is some kind of dispute between employees, I tend to be the kind of final judge at times, when I then usually these things are brought to me that this is now, we're not going to be able to make a decision, or then I see a conversation that looks like it's not going anywhere. I ask people to explain their sides, and then I decide which sounds better to me. And then basically people can hopefully move on and continue working in a reasonable way. But definitely micromanagement is not something that should ever happen. I do have opinions on our games. I do have ideas, which is dangerous for a CEO, but you know, everybody's a game designer, so I like to sometimes kind of throw ideas out there. Usually I do it in a brainstorming session, however, so I don't try to like affect the work that is going on a day-to-day basis.
I think everybody should be able to say their feedback and opinions, and the way I try to kind of remove myself from the equation is that, for example, I don't micromanage at all. I don't make any decisions for people, not even the big ones. There's still many cases where people come with new ideas that, hey, what do you think of this? Should we do this? Should we do that? Do you think that would be okay? And I always say, I hear you. I like what you're saying. Maybe you should ask the team. I don't even give my opinion on one-on-ones usually to people, because they're looking for soft commitment, soft kind of validation for their idea that should we go to this conference, should we launch a game like this, or whatever it is. These are not micro things, they're bigger things. But they're trying to kind of short circuit the organization and the kind of shared distribution of decision making going to the CEO. So I'm very kind of mindful of that. But then at the same time, by not going into the design meetings, the weekly meetings, the product backlog, you know, prioritization meetings, etc., I do feel I have the right to voice my opinion like everybody else on Slack. And that's how I communicate publicly and openly, by giving feedback and asking questions. Sometimes it might require that you argument and use good rhetoric and good argumentation, and you do it 3 to 5 times to get your point across. But then at least you're doing like everybody else, because somebody usually comes in your favor and starts to say, hey, that actually probably has some value. Maybe we should think of doing that. So you're not arguing alone. You're trying to get people to see what you're trying to say and you know, make it more democratic, make it more shared, rather than, I think you should do this, I think you should do that. Because then you take the work back and there's no going back once you do that.
Thank you, Jami. Excellent sentence to finish this up. So thanks for our panelists, Tero, Virtala, Mariina, Hallikainen, and Jami Laes, for sharing all your expertise. There's so much more to explore, so I'm sure that all of you have talks and internet that you've explored this more, or you can come to, for instance, ICTA meetings or other places where these guys are available. So my name is Anna-Kaisa Kultima, and this was Games Now, the first lecture of this decade. And I want to make sure that you follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, so that you get all of our content. And we will see you in February. What we're going to do here locally is now to actually raffle the dinner seat. So that's one of the things that you can get if you come here physically. And then we're going to enjoy some coffee at the back of the room. And the people in the stream, you have to cook your own coffee. But thank you everybody for joining, and see you next time.